So let me first, before we get started, let me introduce you. And it is Nicole Daniels, and you are the head of marketing for Hallmark's Mahogany brand. So welcome.
Thank you.
All right, well, so just in terms of getting into that, like what was the biggest challenge? What were you guys realizing that even though you were established really to reach the Black community, but there was something missing and you had to rethink your messaging?
Well, I don't see it as really something missing per se, because I'll say you pointed to the fact that Mahogany has been around for 30 years. So it's a very beloved brand in the Black community and has been part of Hallmark's overall collection. And so I look at it as that through the renewed investment, it helps us to not only reach our established consumers, right, but also welcome new customers into the fold.
What was the biggest challenge that you were facing at that time in terms of, was it internally? Was it just really knowing how you now need to speak to the audience?
Well, again, I hate to keep saying, 30 years, but I mean, that's a quite a long time to reach a consumer. And so I don't think there was really a struggle because we had been reaching that consumer. I think it's different ways. How can we do more? How can we expand the way we reach this consumer? Because I'll give you a little story. So when I told people, hey, I'm going to work for Hallmark Mahogany, I got a lot of, oh my gosh, I got the best card when I got this promotion and I have it on my board, or my auntie always gave me, or my mom or my granny. I hear stories like that all of the time. So it is quite an iconic and beloved brand. So people are aware of it, but I think that the renewed, the investment allows us to get out into different spaces and to really get that message out there about Mahogany.
Right. And now you did launch a new brand of cards recently. And that was really, as you said, over 30 years, things have changed, consumers have changed. And tell me how you targeted, or not targeted, the messaging. What was the messaging like so you knew you were going to resonate more with today's consumer?
So you are talking about the Uplifted and Empowered. Yes, the Uplifted and Empowered collection, which was born in the summer of 2020. And so it is and was created by Black artists and writers who use their life experiences to communicate, the themes of solidarity and faith and empowerment. Those are the themes that kind of run in that collection, and upliftment. And so everything we do at Mahogany is based around 3 pillars. So if, everything we do has to at least hit one of the pillars, if not, and it's the trifecta if we can hit all 3, right? And so those pillars are, connecting with community, being rooted in faith, and driving with purpose.
So talk about, and specifically in terms of some of the cards and some of the messaging, what was it that you really saw the most response? Just in terms of, as you said, you sort of had to rethink how you connected. What was different today that maybe you needed to evolve from when you initially, 10, 20 years ago?
So and I think we'll talk about it as we go on, but I really think that the key, to reaching the Black community is really authenticity and the tone and the way. I can't stress enough, the authenticity is so important. And so, in that collection, those messages, the way that the Black community speaks to each other, saying things like, sis, or, brother, I see you, or those positive messages are all linked. The faith, all of those messages are all throughout that entire collection. And that is very important when you're reaching the Black community.
And when you get those messages, as you said, you brought in Black writers to, they're living the life. It's not so I think companies need to also bring in realize internally things need to change. So you're hearing the exact voice, you're hearing the voice of who you're trying to reach.
That's right. And then, I mean, a number of our writers have been around, for some time, because Mahogany has been around for some time. So those writers have been there. It's welcoming those new voices as well. So it's bringing, a millennial or younger voice into that fold too. But having all those mixes of ages and ranges and backgrounds really connect the collection overall.
Can you tell me, in terms of one of the messaging, then we'll get into more of your promotion, but is there a particular card that resonated that you really got a lot of response from? Because I know social plays a big role in what you do in terms of, and how do you promote Mahogany? So is there a message that maybe got a lot of response that people really could connect to?
Listen, it's very hard. It's very hard to pick out one because they all do so well. I think of, while you were asking, I think of this card. There's a young, there's a beautiful, beautiful little girl, and she's got this crown on her head, and she's kind of posing in it. The message says, and I don't want to butcher it. But the message basically is, I love to see a world where you are running it, right? And so that little girl with that crown is basically encouraging the other little girl that may see that, right? Or the young woman that may see that, or an adult that did not see herself represented in that way. So, that's always a message. I think anytime, you have a message, it's going to resonate. That's why I don't want to pick out, that card always comes to mind because that little girl, I can think of myself as a little girl, right? So I don't really want to say like one card in particular, because the entire collection really just speaks to that authenticity.
Now, talk about, you did have a campaign recently, a card giveaway campaign, and you had a lot of success with that. Talk about, in terms of the channels that you were using, where do you know that you're going to hit your audience?
So Hallmark, over the past 18 months has done like a series. So we've been able to, as a company, give away millions of cards, right? And so Mahogany was proud to be a part of that. And so in our particular execution, there was a 3-card pack that was given away. And so, and our consumers were encouraged to share those with friends and family. And so some of the channels we used, it was, social to broadcast to earned media. And I know I hit on social first. I think social, African Americans, the Black audience over indexes on social. That is where this community is. So it's one of the most important touch points that we have. Black consumers are online, I think it's like 1.4 times more on Instagram, 1.7 on Twitter. I'm sure Twitter can correct me, or no, excuse me, 1.7 on TikTok and like 1.3 on Twitter. So, Black people are all up and through social media, right? Over indexing, but it's really important to reach those consumers again. And I will keep saying authentically, right? And so it's having those messages.
Well, and not only the message, but influencers.
That's right.
Talk about
That's
that.
right. That's right. And so again, another study I know that points to, and it's 2019 Nielsen study that says 43% of African Americans are more likely to buy a product recommended by an influencer. So that is to say it's important is an understatement, because it speaks to, and I know I spoke to earlier about one of our pillars being community. Black people, create a community online. I'm sure, I don't know if some of you've heard of, Black Twitter. That is and a lot of brands have seen kind of the talk, that happens on Black Twitter or Instagram or all those platforms. Really, it is so important, right, to reach that consumer online.
Well, and talk about that, because again, you need to be authentic, and you can't just put it out there and they will know that it's not genuine to what their audience is what the audience is looking for. So how does a brand that is looking to expand more into the Black community, what do they need to do in order to, with this promotion, what were your steps leading to choosing those channels socially or broadcast, whatever it may be?
Well, listen, I guess I would say, because it's not really like a matter of giving advice, because to be to be honest, Black culture is the culture. Black people have a large influence over our culture at large. And so when we as brands talk to this particular audience, this audience wants to be seen, heard, and most of all, appreciated. And so that's why it's so important to have a diverse team, not only when you're working on campaigns, centered around the Black community, but really overall for even your general market campaigns, because that influence I talked about kind of bleeds into the general market as well. So those elements, really help you develop an authentic campaign.
And you talked, so in terms of social, you mentioned TikTok and
Mhm.
Twitter. Are there any new platforms that maybe you've tested that you saw some good success?
So we haven't launched quite yet on Twitter. I know, overall Hallmark has launched on TikTok. We are on Instagram, right? And so follow us, please, at Hallmark Mahogany, y'all. So listen, we started the year at about 2,700 followers, and so we just hit a little over 25K. And so that speaks to when you have authentic messages, we have a lot of mantras, right? And one of our most popular, and I hope Courtney doesn't spank my hand, but basically our writer, it basically says, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you need to take that PTO, sis. That was a organic post. That was the most popular post that we've had today organically, right? People were like, yes, amen. The comments, the where, that really resonated, and that's the voice, that is how we say a lot of at Hallmark, like that is how she speaks. And it really, it's organic and authentic. I know I've said that a lot, but I can't stress it enough, right? That is how you reach the consumer. That is how she's heard, seen. That is being authentic. Now you can't overdo it, right? That's natural. That's a natural way. But yeah.
What about in terms of paid media versus organic? Like, where do you sort of invest mostly, and then hopefully you then can find the organic comments to sort of supplement that?
Well, that's something, we're working through, right, with our strategy. But when we see things like that, you want to kind of boost those, that's why Instagram is so cool, because you can boost those messages. If you see that you have a popular or a great response, you can get that message out to people who haven't really seen it or who may not be following your page, but it'll, while they're scrolling, they may, let's see what they're talking about, and the next thing you know, you got a follower and they're checking out our cards and they're checking out our offerings. Because, we, as an aside, we're expanding. We're on our journey to becoming more of like a lifestyle brand. We're not going to just be in the card space. We want to make sure that we have a community that uplifts and empowers, the Black community, especially Black women. So, that's kind of how we've kind of been looking at getting our messaging out. And, when it makes sense, TV, of course, but really, that social presence, looking at ways that we can kind of boost our message on social and really get that message out there as well.
And when you talk about that, I know, going more towards, in terms of your audience, the Black woman, first of all, why, as opposed to, do you not expand it to, men or children or whatever, or is there a reason to direct it at the woman of the household, and that then in turn sort of trickles on to the rest of the community?
That's a good question. Black women are they're the life force within the community, right? That's our core consumer. But so it's interesting that you bring up that point, because we have and are expanding those messages, to Black men, and making sure that we have those messages as well. All of our cards aren't centered on just Black women. You can give our cards, especially the Uplifted and Empowered collection, to a Black man, and he would, understand, for Valentine's Day, of course, we have, my husband and birthdays and things like that. our core consumer is the Black woman.
And talk about in terms of if a brand is now wanting to sort of expand and reach the Black community, have you seen mistakes in the past? You don't need to call out any brands that you may have seen doing some sort of advertising or whether it be on social or broadcast. But what are the mistakes? What are the things that people tend to do when they say they're targeting the Black community, but maybe they're not quite getting it? They're missing the mark a bit.
Well, obviously I don't want I don't want to call any, I wouldn't dare call anybody out, but I think that sometimes as marketers, we can kind of get in our heads. And I think I kind of touched on it earlier. It is important to have people of color, Black people in the room when we create these campaigns. Not just for Black campaigns, and I'll say it again, not just for this kind of audience, right? But for general market, because it helps you it helps you get the message out, but it also adds, I hate to say color, but it adds, I'll just say color to your campaign, and not in the sense of, oh, we have an African-American person on the team, but a different insight, something that we may not be thinking of, right? And so I hesitate because I don't want to be negative, but I think that, it's really, here I go again, I'm going to say authentic. As long as you are intentional about the way that you speak to the audience, you can't lose. And I think it has to do with hiring, really partnering. You got to have that data. You got to have the research on Black consumers. You got to utilize those, multicultural agencies. To really create those campaigns that can reach that audience.
Well, I want to see if anyone in the room has any questions. And John, my can run through.
I got you. Yes.
Do you need whites?
Let us know who you are and where you're from. Jimmy Yarnell from Neutronian, one of the sponsors. Nice face mask. Yeah, I like it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see you. We chatted a bit last night. So, as you know, I grew up in Los Angeles and wasn't born in the country, but just maybe a question that's a little bit of a elephant in the room for all. But you took over 4 months ago, but we've lived through this intense period of racial discussion and racial unrest. And for me, the most intense period since Rodney King, right, sort of right nearby where I grew up, for example. So, how do you think about engaging with that dialogue within your 3 pillars in a positive way? Do you not directly address it? It's so important for the Black community now. And how do you navigate that with authenticity, and what's the messaging, and even, related to Black Lives Matter? It's such a core dialogue these days.
So just going back to the Uplifted and Empowered collection, like, it was born in the summer of 2020. And so there was a lot of things that are going on, during the summer of 2020. So, and it really points to, what I mentioned about having those Black writers as well as the artists. So the cards were drawn by Black artists. They were written by Black people. And so what they were feeling at the time, what their life experience was at the time and is now, right, is all weaved into that. And so it is, I know, there's there's an approach, I hate to say you have to be careful, but there is an approach to reaching the community, right? And so that's what makes it authentic, the people behind those cards, because they are living this day to day. And I think that's why we talked about the popularity. I think that's why, those cards are and continue to be so popular, because you want to see yourself represented. Like, I'm feeling away, or I'm feeling sad, or what is going on in the world. How do I express this? Or, and to add that layer of the pandemic, when I can't see you, but I know I can send you a card, right? And so I think that's why it was so, that it resonated with people, like seeing that handwritten message, like, hey, you know, I know a lot of stuff is going on, sis, but I see you, or bro, I see you. I just want to let you know, I see what you're doing. I see you. I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. So I think that's why that collection resonates so much. And overall, you know, Hallmark, like I said, they gave away millions of cards. So not just for Mahogany, you know, those handwritten messages, seeing that from your mom, you know, it just makes you smile. It makes you feel like, I feel I'm all right.
Hi, Max Goldberg from Steel Straw. We're a sustainable publisher on the affiliate space. Looking forward to getting all of your CPG products in front of our audience. Question for you. Looking back at the last 18 months and also the last 30 years, the Black audience isn't a single block. So I'm curious, in your experience, looking at the data, looking at sub-demographics, for example, household income, geography, age, have you found nuances in what the concept of authenticity means within the Black community? And then also, since we're in a room full of marketers, is there a way to measure the concept of authenticity in your experience?
Oh boy, you hit that's hit me with a really good question. So let me go back. So I was developing the answer and then I just blanked. Geez, Louise. You hit it. It's very important. You hit it right in the beginning. Black people are not a monolith, right? Exactly. So there's all kinds of age ranges and thoughts and feelings all weaved through that. And so, you know, our consumer, you know, has always been and I see her in my head, right? Like I can tell who she is. So that's, you know, like maybe like Gen X or Boomer, right? But we want to kind of talk to a younger audience, millennial audience, right? And so you asked about, well, how do you know, like how do you measure authenticity, right? Well, how do you put a measurement, or how do you put a KPI on that, Nicole? I don't, you know, I would say, can you, question mark? I really, when you get down in the comments, you know, and I go back to Twitter, you know, especially the, you know, Black Twitter, you can see what people are saying about your brand. That is why I'm saying social is so important, because that community, and really multicultural audiences, but the Black community is online. That is where we go to kind of talk to each other. Hey, did you see that new, you know, car, or have you seen this new campaign? That is, you know, where we go to kind of chat with each other. You meet people, not just your circle, but the entire circle, like the world circle. So I think that, you know, there's a lot of brands monitoring kind of that quote unquote social chatter. I think that's how you can measure whether or not your brand is, you know, being authentic, by the way these consumers are reacting to that creative that you're putting out there, is measuring that, you know, that social chatter that you see. And that, and really getting, I would say getting down in the comments. I mean, that's probably not a technical term, but really monitoring that and watching kind of what people are saying.
Okay, well, thank you. This is great. And I really appreciate you taking the time. And I think
Thank
now,
you.
unless we have any other questions, we good? Okay.
Wait, you know what? We
Oh,
do have one more question in the back here.
We
Hang
do
on,
have
hang
one more question.
on. Okay.
Hi there, this is Tara from Been There, Done That. I love what you said about the brand becoming more of a lifestyle brand. And given the intersection and use of community, and now that you're more active on social, I'd just love to hear if you have any like innovations in the pipeline for different products outside of just the cards that you have while it's still new. And I think the community is giving you a lot of inspiration, looking to them for further inspiration for product development, or, you know, the NFT craze, anything of that nature that you might be thinking of introducing.
Well, now I can't give you all the trade secrets, right? No, I mean, no, I'm just kidding. So what does that, you know, look like? If we look at, you know, our consumer, what does she do? What is she like? You know, so if we're looking at our millennial consumer, you know, she's all about, like in the beginning of the year, she's all about, you know, what am I going to do? I'm getting my life together. I'm my glow up. Okay, how do I get my life together? It could look like a planner. or it could, I love smell goods. She likes smell goods. She likes to have her home looking nice. So it could look like, candles. So it's providing those things or those products that she wants, right? That resonate with her. And not only products, so also partnering and activations, being in places like we recently did, and go check it out, it's on our page, but at Hallmark Mahogany, plug. We recently had, we did something called the Black Excellence Brunch. And it was just a beautiful day, things like that. So we're in places that she is too. So that's also part of becoming more of a lifestyle brand, going to where she is to talk to her, to say, hey, girl, we're here. Come on, come talk to us. And also creating a community where she can go and talk and be safe and empowered and uplifted.
Anyone else? All right. Well, I think John will throw it to you. And Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.